What's next? I'd like to discuss spirituality and how someone new to the spiritual path can learn and become more spiritual and take control of the spiritual powers, learn to utilize their own spiritual powers, find their own spiritual powers. One thing you have to learn is there are two different scales. There are two parts of spirituality, and you have to learn that there's nothing bad. There's nothing negative about it. It's we as humans assign positive and negative energies to everything, and other people take control by telling us, oh, that's the bad part or that's the good part. But mostly when they tell you it's a good part is they're trying to gain control of you, control of your mind, because for some reason the physical reality is there are those who want to gain control of us. And this is not anti-Christian or any anti-religion. I believe all religions have a kernel of truth to them. They teach that truth very well, and then they surround it with dogma. And the dogma really isn't part of the religion. It was added to gain control of the hearts and the minds of the people. So, okay, there are two kind of scales, or two measurements. One measurement is a measurement of fear. And the fear comes from anger, sadness, anger, sadness is another one. Just negative emotions. And with fear, you have peacefulness. So you have to learn to push the fear more to a peaceful side. And when the anger comes, you have to learn to listen to it and try to find what the source might be. But mostly, whatever the fear comes and manifests itself as, you have to listen to those inner voices. The other voices are love. Love and compassion and happiness. And I always thought they were the same part of the same scale, but they're two different scales. And that's why they have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. You know, you have two voices that are just constantly talking to you, and they're not really negative or positive. It's just the negative one learns to get attention, learns to get the most attention by saying negative things, so you can, listen to it and focus on it. Because they're really not fighting for your attention. They're just both wanting attention, because there's plenty of energy. So the positive side is never going to try to stop the negative side, and the negative side is never going to stop the positive side. They're just going to both vie for your attention, like two children. Two children might bicker and argue, but at the end, they're both parts of you, but they will work together occasionally, which is something that I was never really quite used to. And some say, they call it, when you listen to the negative side, you're romancing the devil or listening to the dark side. It's just listening. You don't act upon what the dark side says. You just listen to what the dark side says. And when, then once the voices start talking, you just listen to them compassionately without any judgment. Because as you listen compassionately, the dark side will give you positive feedback. It's going to move towards a neutral area. It's just kind of hard to explain, but even though both sides are on two different wavelengths, they both have a more neutral area, and it just makes an easier life to live in a positive, even though the negative side sometimes knows how to manipulate you and get your attention much more effectively than the positive side. Because honestly, the positive side is easier, but it just involves more listening, more compassion. So moving on, you keep a notebook. You grab a little book that you can keep in your pocket. I try to do it on a cell phone. Like I started recording my videos on my cell phone because it's always with me. That's where ideas come from. But kind of just easier just to have a little notebook where you can just attach a pen to it. The doll store usually has them where they have like a little loop and you attach a pen to it and you just write down ideas. And it's good just to once a week write down things you want to manifest for yourself. Things you want a mindset, where you look at it and you say, I want to be happy, I want to be relaxed, I want to be content, I want to be financially secure. But rather than saying I want, you say I am. So you take the things that you want and you create I am statements. And in each day, remember this notebook is just a little piece of paper, between 80 and 100 pages, little thing, probably about maybe 2-3 inches long, where you write down, I am relaxed, I'm content, I'm compassionate, I listen to my inner voices compassionately without judgment. Things like that. Because the more you learn to listen to those inner voices, the more you'll learn about your subconscious. And I've always thought there was like one unique voice, but there are multiple unique voices. It's easy just to say there are two. There's the fear side and the loving side, but there are more. And as you move along, you learn to appreciate all those voices because they'll all give you insight. The ones that are negative are going to become more positive. They're not going to be positive completely because, remember, living in this physical world, we're always battling the fear side and the loving side. It's just how we as physical beings exist. Religious people are more adept, more experienced at listening to their positive side because their positive side is stronger. And some people have a much stronger positive side. But that positive side will never, ever try to eliminate the negative side because the negative side can also see things that when we reach our higher positive self, the negative side can see things that the positive side can't see. It'll notice things. It'll give you insight. Where if you learn as you come along, you learn to read people. And you have to learn to read people by not taking on their energy. And with that, you have to learn to ground yourself. Where you take the energy from Mother Earth, the positive energy from Mother Earth, and bring it to your heart center. And from there, from your heart center, you send it up to the source, to God, to heaven, to keep you in constant balance. And then when the positive side, you want to pull down the white light of God, the white light of source, down through your head, down to your heart center, down through your feet, down to the center of the earth. And with that, you are the perfect conduit between the loving energy of source and the grounding energy of earth. And the grounding energy itself, the ones in control have made heaven, the positive side, up above, and the ones in control have made the negative side down below our feet. But no, the negative side is not at our feet. It's just a lower energy source. It's like I said, there are two energies. We're surviving in the middle as a physical being, and you learn to listen to both sides. You learn to ground yourself while balancing up your positive self. And that's where meditation comes in. Once you learn that there are two voices and learn that you can compassionately listen to both sides without judgment, that's when meditation comes. And then you're going to be people who tell you how to properly meditate. And these are the rules for meditation. There are no rules for meditation. The only rule is that you sit quietly for an assigned amount of time that you pick. Usually in the beginning you want to start for 2 or 3 minutes, and as you get better at it, you'll start for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and half an hour. Half an hour a day, half an hour 3 or 4 times a day is good. But that meditation does not mean you have to be laying down or sitting in the lotus position. I personally love the lotus position. Even a 50-year-old person, I am double jointed, so sitting in lotus position has always been comfortable for me. But there's been times where I have used laying down as meditation, and I have not fallen asleep. Now, with the meditation, you have to pick a time where you have a timer. You can play background music. You can have a source where someone will give you inspiration or guided meditation. These are all fine. Whatever you want to do at the beginning, just use all the sources, but don't think there's only one. When anyone ever tells you there's only one kind of meditation, they're manipulating you. They're trying to, quote, guide you, but they're trying to gain your control. You, as an individual, as a spiritual person, are sovereign. You're free. You're each an aspect of God. Jesus Christ did state to the Philistines, to the judges, he said, we are all God, because we are all an aspect of God. Jesus was trying to teach us that we all have an aspect of spiritual, an aspect of God within us. And we also have a spiritual physical of man. So we're balancing the higher spiritual side and the, I don't want to say lower, but it's kind of the lower human animal side. I mean, it's so much. In Greek culture, in Roman culture, it keeps the same theme, keeps repeating. The animalistic physical being versus the higher spiritual being. I mean, art is a balance of the two, of the spiritual side and the physical side. And the physical side will try to gain control. The spiritual side will try to gain control. And then there's others outside of you who will try to gain control. Only your judge, only your inner judge is important. And that inner judge is going to come with compassion. Whenever you feel an urge or a voice in your head, it's going to feel like compassion, loving energy, or it's going to feel more physical or lower energy. And each of them are going to be very insightful, very informative. But when it comes from an aspect of fear, you listen to it, even write it down. And then from there, you modify it to a more positive light. So when the negative self tells you, watch out for that person is bad, that person is going to hurt you. Well, it might be your negative self trying to protect you, but it also might be giving you a piece of information that actually is not exactly the same as the statement it said, but there's a truth within it, a kernel of truth. And whenever it says something, you listen to it. Like if it says to you, oh, you shouldn't eat that, you're just too fat. Well, one aspect, you're too fat, that's to get your attention. But you shouldn't eat that. It might be true. It's just trying to get your attention because it's trying to make you not eat something that's going to make you feel bad about yourself. But it tells you you're too fat. So you have to kind of like take the negative statement, find what the real truth of that statement is, and move forward. Like, oh, you can't trust that person will hurt you. And then you realize, oh wait, that person is very selfish. So at which point you don't thank it for using negative words, but you thank the inner voice that said the negative thing for giving you insight. I thank you for your insight. And you move forward. You don't fight the negativity. You don't say words to stop that. You don't say words to prove that they're wrong. This is your own inner voice. You just listen to it and try to find that little tiny kernel of truth. And sometimes a big negative statement, a horrible negative statement, will have a little tiny grain, teeny tiny grain of truth in it. You have to find that grain of truth, and then once you find it, thank it. If you can't find that grain of truth, Just listen and let it pass. You don't try to prove it's wrong. You don't try to prove it right. You just listen. And as you move along, the negative side is going to feel it's listened to more, so it's going to be more quieter. It's not going to be as active because it gets the attention it's craving. It's also realizing that, hey, if I give the insight that is helpful to my higher self, helpful to me as a physical being, helpful to me as a higher spiritual person, if I give them the information that it wants without being as negative, I get more attention. So the negative side, the dark soul, whatever you want to call it, will speak more compassionately. Again, you're balancing two sections of your mindset, the physical side and the spiritual side. But as the negative side is less actively trying to get your attention, the higher self will give you much more loving, compassion insight. And with that, again, you write that down in your notebook. Your notebook is a physical manifestation of the subconscious chatter that you're going to hear. And there's nothing judgmental about it, it's just information. And from there, I've just recently learned that when you write something down, you can use not statements, like I am not poor. So that's a negative statement. You say I am not poor because sources of money, surface of profit comes to me from known and unknown sources. I am not fat becomes I am not fat because I am learning to eat more healthy. I am already eating more healthy now. I have a healthy mindset. I am not sad becomes I am not sad. I am not angry because I learn to listen to my positive self more often. I walk a more spiritual path. And even, if you can, have a daily affirmation when you start your day is, I am manifesting. And you are constantly manifesting your life. You're manifesting good, and you're manifesting negative things. I don't want to say bad, because it's just an aspect. The positive negative scale are two different lines. They're always working, and there's plenty of energy to feed both. It's just you want to learn to feed the higher self and then feed less of the lower self, but give it more effort or more, because if it gets energy by you listening to it, by giving you insights, it's gotta listen better. I mean, this is off the top of my head. I'm trying to create something about being a more spiritual person for everyone. And when I get better at it, I'm just going to sit at a desk, have a script that I'm going to write out. And that script is going to be created from these little videos I produce for myself. The idea is I want to help more people, because my spiritual journey has been a long and arduous journey. It's been fun, but I want to make it easier for everyone, because there is no one path. There's multiple paths. And once you find your path, learn to appreciate yourself, learn to appreciate your path. What's next?